This is WZRD Chicago, 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD via Zoom, Amber Alert's founder, Pastor Charles Williams of the Amber News Network. How are you today, Pastor Williams?
I am very well, thank you. I will be on set in just a second.
Take your time, that's okay.
Yeah, I am very well, thank you.
We are so glad to have you here, of course. Yeah, we understand. You fix up everything because you have a very important message, and we want to make sure that your message and the people that you help, we could spread that far and wide, and make sure that you spread it, we spread it, so that we could hopefully help families find more of the missing persons.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So once again, thank you so very much for your patience, and we are here, and we're here live from Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio. So that's where it started, right? When you started the Amber Alert News Network.
Okay.
Amber News Network.
The Amber News Network, yes, that is where the Amber News Network started. Yes.
Mm-hmm. What about when you? Well, if you could multitask, I'll ask you questions. Otherwise, you finish programming.
Okay, sure.
Programming is.
No, we're good.
Okay.
Yes, that is where that's where the Amber News Network started. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
However, the Amber Alert actually started in Texas when we lived there in Texas.
Yes, there was a very young girl that disappeared, right? That went missing, and then and her first name was Amber. And I think somebody that cared asked the legislators to start the Amber something. It wasn't Amber Alert. They changed it to Amber Alert.
That is correct. Part of that is correct. I'll say it this way. The Amber Alert, the Amber Alert actually started on January 13th, 1996. Amber, a little 9-year-old Amber Hageman, she went missing a couple of days prior to that. She was riding her bicycle in and around the Arlington, Texas area where she lived, and she was abducted. And on January the 13th is when I come in the picture. On January the 13th, I picked up the phone after listening to the reports and so forth. I picked up the phone and called a local radio station. That station is WBAP. And at that time, it was in Fort Worth, Texas. Now it's in Arlington. And I talked with the talk show host there, Mark Davis, who I shared with him and the Arlington, Texas police spokesperson at the time was Dee Anderson. They were all there in the studio when I called, and I shared with them a very simple concept. I said, what would happen if, just like when a tornado is coming through the area, they break in the televisions with weather bulletins and everything? I said, what would happen if we use that same concept when a child is abducted? You would be able to put eyes and ears on every corner. And the long and short of it was that was the initial first trial of that particular concept. They said, that sounds so simple. Never will forget Dee Anderson. He said, that sounds so simple. And Mark said, let's just do that right now. And so on January the 13th, while Amber was still missing, the initial concept was done And we had a number of witnesses to us making the phone call and the content of the call. And the long and the short of it is that as a result of that phone call, the Department of Justice adopted that same concept of using the weather system. That's why when people hear of an Amber Alert, they say, well, this sounds just like the weather system. It should, because it's mimicked right after the weather system. Mm-hmm. And that was my ideal. That was my concept. And later on, and this is where a lot of social media picks up, later on, the Dallas-Fort Worth radio announcers picked up the ideal. Dee Anderson shared that ideal with the radio announcers at a meeting that they were having. And they agreed to put down radio ratings and competition for the sake of finding a child when that child is abducted. So that's when the radio announcers come in. So that's how it was born.
We also, during our research, we saw that there was a neighbor that called in about seeing Amber being abducted. So do you still know whether the neighbor called in before the Amber Alert went into effect, or after he heard about the Amber Alert and knew where to call, and then he or she called?
I have no knowledge at all of who the neighbor may have been. I do have knowledge that there was a neighbor who reported the little girl being abducted. They gave the police officers a description of a vehicle. They gave the police officers a vague description of what he or she saw, but I do not know that person's name, but I do know that the Amber Alert concept is based from the phone call and the ideal that I shared publicly on January the 13th, 1996.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is so important, because even though tragically Amber wasn't safe because she was found dead a couple of days later, but however, because of the Amber Alert, there have been many missing people that have been found. Could you share with us what is the maximum age that a person has to be before an Amber Alert would be issued for the person?
The Amber Alert is able to be issued from the time a person discovers that they are pregnant with child up until 364 days of their 17th year of age. Once they turn 18, they are no longer eligible to receive an Amber Alert.
Mm-hmm. Do you know that when we went in Chicago, we are in Chicago, and these Amber Alerts are occasionally, thankfully it's not like a lot of them, but however, maybe it would be good if there were more of them, but however, most of them are of very, very young children, like under 5. Do you have an idea? Is that does it usually Amber Alerts get issued for very young children, or are there also teenagers? Sure. That because we hardly ever hear of the teenagers. There's so many of the very young children that we hear, that we see the Amber Alerts being flashed on the phone, and even on the radio. We hear it on the radio in Chicago.
Yes, yeah, and it's the same way across the country. One of the most important factors in the Amber Alert is that they try to, in the development and putting this together, they try to keep putting the criteria together. Rather, they want to keep everything as close to being as it was when Amber went missing. So she was a little child. She was 9 years of age. Okay, and this is why they more so, you're going to hear more about the younger ones than you will the older ones, typically because when it is a young child, meaning from the time of pregnancy to the time of, let's just say, 10 years of age. There's not much that a little child can do. There's only so much that a little child can do. A little child is not of that age frame is not going to be considered a runaway. Most of the time, you're going to hear more Amber Alerts geared toward the younger people. Here's why: because more people are more sympathetic towards the younger children of age. Once the kid starts getting into that 11, 12, 13, they are more likely being, quote unquote, considered as a runaway. 14, 15, 16, 17, up until that time, they are, they really have to prove something is wrong before an Amber Alert would be issued. So yes, the younger children get it more quickly. The older children, authorities are a lot of times reluctant or hesitant to give it to the older ones because they have to weed through the fact of, is this child a runaway? Is this child just kicking it with their friends? These are questions you don't have to ask about a 2 or 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about your system? Because when the authorities, as you described, when they're trying to investigate under every rock before they issue an Amber Alert, that's valuable time being wasted that might have gone into intercepting someone who abducted the missing person. Would a family be able to come to you for an alert instead? And has that happened? And I know that you vetted cases before you issue an alert, but has it happened that families come to you instead, so that there's less time wasted, and then in the end they were able to find that person who was missing?
Yes, the answer to that is absolutely yes. Many families have reached out to me directly first because they felt that perhaps it was taking so long for the authorities to issue an Amber Alert. We have often we've had families, particularly, and I want to draw a scenario here. We have child safety advocates in all 50 states. Okay, sometimes we have more than one advocate covering certain states, and we have this partnership with them. And a lot of times we are made aware of cases before an Amber Alert even becomes an Amber Alert. There have been times I have issued a courtesy alert, and with the abstract that should this case be elevated to an Amber Alert, we will then drop the courtesy alert and just go with the fact that it's an Amber Alert. And there have been times when cases have been issued as Amber Alerts that at some point in time, authorities decided to drop the Amber Alert and issue it as something else. Then we would take that once it's dropped and issue a courtesy alert, because our goal is to make sure that every child get as much possible exposure as possible, because in those early hours, it's very important. It's been stated, and I absolutely believe it, that in our industry, when a child is abducted, a suspect can flee at the rate of 60 miles. 60 minutes. I'm sorry, a mile a minute. I'll say that every minute. Every minute is a person going, further and further away. And so this is why it is critically important. A mile. Think about that. A mile a minute. A mile a minute. Okay. How far could a person be in 30 minutes? They could be out of your county in 2 hours. They could be out of your radio reach. So this is why we don't just use just radio and TV. I was thinking about this earlier. One of the beautiful things about the courtesy alert is that when an Amber Alert is issued, a lot of times, I mean, most of the time that an Amber Alert is issued, it is issued between news cycles, meaning that when the 7 o'clock news goes off at 9 o'clock, there is no more news up until noon. When the noon news goes off at 1 o'clock, there's no more news until 4 or 5 o'clock. Well, what happens during those times when a child goes missing and it's going to be 2 hours before the news media is able to alert the people on the news? This is where the courtesy alert is really a beautiful thing, because it makes no difference whether it's an Amber Alert or a courtesy alert. We step in and we will be able to fill that gap in notifying the people, making the people alert, so that when they come home or when they finally get a chance to get to their device or wherever it is they get their news, they will already be made aware of it. And the other beautiful thing about the courtesy alert is that with the Amber Alert all over the country, with the Amber Alert, when it goes to your push notifications on your phone, you're going to get information. You're going to see written information. You will not see a picture of a child. You will not see a description of a child. But with the courtesy alert, we are able to push out the child's picture immediately. As soon as we get it, we are able to push out the car wanted in connection with the Amber Alert immediately. And a lot of times this happens after the news media has already, gone off the air.
You use social media for these courtesy alerts. So if people want to make sure that they do catch the alerts, do they have to be on a certain channel, on a certain Facebook page, or how do they need to be connected to social media in order to see your alerts?
Well, I would love to say they need to be connected to my page, but we have made it a lot more easier and convenient for people to receive the alerts and the information that we send out. I mentioned before our child safety advocates that are spread out throughout the country. Mm-hmm. What we will do is we will produce the broadcast here in our studio. Then we will take and share it with all of the social media advocates, okay? We have advocates on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube. And we will take it and share it to them, and they then will take it and share it with their followers and invite them to do the same thing in sharing it. And so by doing that, it eliminates people having to just come to my page to get the information, but they may see that alert 4 or 5 times in a day coming from different angles. So yes, it does get out, but it's the power of the people that we use to put our alerts out.
And it is also the family, right, and the friends of the missing person as well. It will be shared via their networks, via their friends as well, correct?
That is absolutely correct. I know we will take and typically with the courtesy alert, we will take and set up an interview with a family member. And to me, that's important, because I don't think no one can really register or tell a person's story like a mother or a father can who is missing their son or daughter. And so typically we will take and schedule an interview with the mother or the father, and they will come on the air with us, and they will tell us a little bit more about their son or daughter that's missing. But what this does is it also creates an avenue for the mother or the father to speak directly to their son or daughter that is missing, and in some cases, speak directly to the perpetrator who may have abducted their son or daughter. We've did this several times, and with great results. I'll give you a great example. there was a young man who abducted a small child, and the family came on my broadcast, and I said, if the perpetrator is watching, what would you like to say to him or her right now? And they spoke something to that particular person. When they finished, I spoke to the person and I asked the person, I said, listen, do not do any harm to that child. Take that child to a safe place and drop that child off in a public or in a safe place. I have you to know that within 2 hours, authorities found that child. That child had been dropped off in a restaurant, was sitting on a table, still in their baby chair, whatever that's called, still in their baby carrier, and was there on the table. And that perpetrator did exactly what I asked him or her to do. And that has been repeated several times, that because a lot of times you don't know who you're talking to, because one thing about doing broadcasts like we do, both the good people will receive our broadcasts, and also suspects also get our broadcast. And so we were just thankful and grateful that we were able to speak some sense and some rationale into him, and he was able to do the right thing. And the authorities later caught up with him. But initially, our purpose for doing the broadcast is to get the child back safely.
What in your background helped you come up with the idea? I know that you spoke with the radio station and then suggested it, but what was the ignition point? What did you have in your background that helped you see that this was important? Were you involved in missing persons before?
No. At the time that I did that, I had no idea. I had no involvement with missing persons or anything. I had no history of missing persons at all. The most that I had that came close to that is that I am a retired senior pastor of a church. And of course, as a pastor, children are very precious to us, okay? I love their smiles. I love the way they do things and so forth. And so that's always been a tender spot in my heart as a pastor. When I got ready to, when I placed the call, one thing kept resonating in my mind is that I am also the father of 4 daughters. And I was thinking, how would I feel if something like that ever happened to my daughter? Mm-hmm. And how would I respond? How would I react? And so, and I've told many of people, and I've said this publicly, that they would have probably had to put me in jail, because I would have been just absolutely bonkers if any of my daughters had gone missing during that time. And it was for that reasoning within me that I chose to step up and to get involved in the process.
Well, you were a retired pastor. Once you started working with the Amber News Network, you created it, and now you're helping so many families. Are you busier now than when you were a pastor?
That's a very good question. Yes, I am more busier now. I am absolutely more busier now than I ever was as a senior pastor. Yes.
But it seems as if you don't feel tired. It seems that you're driven, and then there's so much to do, and then you want to help as many people as possible. Is there any waiting list? How quick is the turnaround? Are you able to help as many families as that come to you?
I would say this. What is the turnaround? Wow. When people come to us, it is my goal, and my thought is that I don't want to turn anybody down. And so I will do my best to, before I will do a broadcast, okay, great way to answer this would be, I will vet the cases and so forth. And then I will prepare to do a broadcast. And should others come in while I am preparing to do a broadcast, which often happens, I will just take and put a picture. I will share a picture of others until I am able to get to each one with the broadcast. What we find out is that while they are waiting on me to do a broadcast for their missing loved ones, some of the cases get resolved, okay? And nothing is needed. But yes, we try to do the exact same thing, give everyone their due diligence to sharing their story about their missing loved one, and all the information that's needed can be shared and then shared with others. Now, one of the biggest problems that we have concerning continuing getting the word out is after we do the broadcast, and it comes up in the sharing aspect of the broadcast, is that we have issues with Facebook, a lot of times with Facebook, because families come to us. They come to us and we'll do this and so forth, and we'll tell them to start sharing. Well, sometimes Facebook will not allow a family to share more than 7 or 8 times. And that really makes a family, feel some kind of way. So this is why it's important that when we share our information with advocates nationwide, that they take and everyone is able to share. I know I have been I have been in Facebook jail more times than you can count because of trying to share somebody's missing child. But you know what? I wear that as a badge of honor, because later we find out that, and this is what I really love about either the courtesy alert or the Amber Alert, but once it is shared, if it doesn't get to the child directly, it gets to someone who knows where the child is, a schoolmate or a friend or someone who may have seen. So really what we do here is of great value, because when people take and say for instance, they're in Chicago and they're passing out flyers and they're going around the community and they're putting flyers up on every post and so forth. Well, the city has an ordinance that says, you can't put flyers on posts in a lot of cities and in a lot of states. So the city tells an employee to go out and take down every flyer that you just paid $1 for to have printed up, and now they're going to take it down. So what I share with people, what to do is to take a flyer to your neighborhood store, okay? And the neighborhood store may not allow you to put it up on their window, citing security. I've been through all this, so I know. But here's what I tell families. Once you get the flyers printed, go to the management of any store and ask them to put the flyer in the employee break room, okay? And really, that is much more of an element of surprise, is that which do you think would be more effective? If a missing child or a person who's got an abducted child sees a flyer on the window, they most likely are not going to go into that store because they see their picture being plastered on the window. But when that picture is in the employee break room and all of the employees know and have a good mental image of that picture, they can call the local authorities and let the authorities decide if that was or wasn't the person being sought for. So that's we have to be smart. We have to honor and work with the city officials, but we have to also be smart as to how we do it.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe the employees, they might talk among themselves as well about what they've seen, and that maybe it's the more that people kind of interact with each other, then it kind of spreads, and maybe that might make people more incentivized to actually call in. So have you? Do you know
No.
if? Do you know if there are, I don't know if you were anticipating my question, but do you know of any cases where it was an employee that in the break room that called in an important tip?
Okay. I do not have information that has happened yet. Okay. We recently started doing that within the last 6 to 8 months. Okay. So it's still quite early to determine whether or not, but again, the beautiful thing about that is, let's say here in Ohio, we have a store called Dollar General. Okay. And let's say a person goes into the store, okay, with the child. They go into the store and they go up to the counter and all of that. They have that person on camera from the time they drove up to the parking lot. They have the person on camera at the register and everything. So the whole purpose of that is for authorities to be able to track someone's movement. They can now say, this person was last seen at the Dollar General on such and so street at such and so time. So we have reason to believe that this person is still in the immediate area. Okay.
Yes. So evidently, well, as long as the flyers are up, it seems as if it helps, because like you mentioned earlier, if they were taped to poles and taken down, that's a big waste. But even though it might reach fewer people, as long as it's up and in the like let's say in the employees break room, that keeps the message spreading, because it's like a whole network, and then it keeps on going, right? And that's your basic premise, and that's how you came up with the idea, finding somewhere where it just won't be taken down.
That is absolutely correct. And one other thing I would like to share to families who have a missing loved one, and you feel like, okay, we've done the flyer thing, okay, we've done the sharing thing, okay, you've got a courtesy alert out for them. What else can we do? What I would encourage some parents to do is to network, get with other parents of missing children in your area and come together and purchase the use of a digital billboard. Okay, now when Amber Alerts are issued, they will use those same digital billboards, and there's no cost or anything at all to the Amber Alert network. But here's the thing. People who just have missing children can also use those same digital billboards. They can contact the company that owns those billboards and let them know what they want to use them for. It has been my experience that the companies, once they find out that the family is trying to find a missing loved one, they will allow them to use their digital billboards at a reduced cost. The only thing that the management requires of those families is that, one, that there must be a police contact. There must be a police contact information. They will not do it if you're just going to issue your personal phone number or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's very helpful. And is that relevant to across the country or only to some states?
That is relevant to anywhere in America. Mm-hmm. Everywhere. They're all 50 states. You can contact the company that owns the sign. Let them know what it is that you are desiring to do, and they will work with you at a reduced cost. Mm-hmm. And Those are the only two requirements: a reduced cost, and there must be a police report on file as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you started in Texas, and first it was where was, but it was in Arlington and Fort Worth, and then Arlington. When did it start spreading to neighboring states? Then how do you still remember?
Yes. Once it started spreading really soon after Texas started using it. It had not yet become law or anything in Texas yet. The ideal was beginning to grow because now that we're doing this in Texas, and they kept doing this they kept doing this in Texas, getting it out quickly and everything, because at that time, law enforcement and media were bumping heads. Law enforcement was like, no, we're going to withhold this information. This is our information. And once we came forth with this concept of, instead of them withholding the information and sharing it with everybody so that the child could be found, they started seeing results. And so the first state that I am aware of that came into Texas and wanted to see how it was, Texas started getting good results from children that had been abducted, was California. Officials in California came to Texas. They were looking at the program, and they came and had more questions and talked to the law enforcement officials as to how it was they were doing. They spoke with Radio Broadcasters Association and found out what it was that they were doing. And they took it back to California. And what do we know? California started getting positive results. And then other states started getting positive results. And so it was a couple of years. It was just shy of 2 years before this became a nationwide alert. As it started to snowball and continued to snowball, during this time, President George W. Bush Jr. was the president at that time from Texas as well. And so once they got all the data together and so forth, different ones, not myself, but different ones began to approach legislators about making this a national law. And lo and behold, it did. And I am still so proud today to say that I sit here before you as a person who was able to get all of the U.S. Senate to agree on something, okay? And all of the senators, all of the U.S. senators agreed that this would be a very good thing. And I'll tell you a little secret. The reason that they agreed that this would be a very good thing is that it cost them nothing. It cost the country nothing. And that was one of the major things that really appealed to both members of the House and members of the Senate, was that there was no money that people were going to have to use in order to look for a kid. This was a grassroots movement that swelled, and once they made it law, then they did pour money in toward it for better implementations and in ways to better the program, and to give law enforcement training as to when an Amber Alert is needed, how to activate it, and all those type of things.
Do you base, when you vet the families to see if you should take on the case, do you base it on how law enforcement questions families as well? What in your background help you to vet a case, or is it just common sense?
I use both. I use both. I will really, after talking to a family and seeing the pain in a father's eyes, father to father, how could I dare say no? When I sit down and I talk to a mother and she is weeping and just sharing with me that she feels that everyone else has let her down, How could I dare say no? And then I reach out to the authorities concerning that same case. They will let me know that they let me know often, Pastor, it just seems like this child has just vanished off the face of the earth. And if you can do something, you know, we certainly appreciate whatever you can do to bring more exposure to this case. So, so actually what we bring to each and every case that we choose to get involved in is hope. We bring hope. We bring hope back to the police that's working it, to the investigators that's working it. And they are, the first responders, they are so appreciative of us coming in and stepping in to do a broadcast, because yes, the police, you see police from time to time, they'll be on and they'll do a 30-second sound bite about the child and so forth. But the beauty of the courtesy alert, or the beauty of what we do when we're doing Amber Alerts, is that we are able to dedicate more time to the case. We're grateful for what the mainstream media does, but mainstream media does not dedicate 30 or 45 minutes to a broadcast concerning an Amber Alert. That's what we do. Mm-hmm. And humanize the people. And we just, you know, that's just what we do. And I've met with fathers and mothers. And let me say this, we do all of this and we don't charge anybody a dime. We never charge anybody for our services. Everything that we do here at the Amber News Network, everything that we do, I have paid for everything in this room, okay? I have paid for everything in this room, and we are continuing to improve on with the equipment and quality that we have. But people ask me often, why do you do what you do? When I hear a mother or a father tell me thank you, when I see a child being held by their mother or father who just hours earlier was the subject of a courtesy alert or an Amber Alert, that's worth it to me. It's worth it. Mm-hmm. It's worth it. You have to be called to do what I do.
Do you have a 501c3 in which people could donate to you, and then you get more funding?
Well, yes, we do. We do have a Cash App. Okay, believe it or not, I don't know what it is. That's how often. But let me pull it up here right quick. You can. What is that? I think it's Amber Alert 1. Okay, it's Amber Alert Founder and the number 1 on Cash App. Okay, it is Amber Alert Founder 1 on Cash App. You can go there. You can do whatever is laid up on your heart to do, and we take whatever we get to purchase either new tablets, new equipment, or something. But you can rest assured that whatever we purchase is going to go towards finding and returning the missing children.
When you speak with families across the U.S., there was a time before the pandemic where Zoom wasn't that popular. During that time when you spoke with families, did you have something else like another application that was like Zoom in which you could interview the families, or did the families have to fly out to Columbus, Ohio?
Okay. No, we have always been able to just use our network. I rarely ever use Zoom other than to do interviews, okay? But when I have a family on my network, they will appear on either one of these screens here. We bring them in. We may use more FaceTime. We will use more FaceTime, and we may use more Messenger than we use on Zoom. We try to reserve our Zoom for things such as we're doing now. video conferences and things of that nature. But when we do it like on FaceTime, they know that it's a conversation between party A and party B. And a lot of people just, they feel a little more comfortable that way.
Mm-hmm. So you mean that you have these conversations with the families via like a Facebook Live, in which is recorded
Yes.
out of your studio. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is correct. We will do we will let them know. And there are some particularly, there are some families, some mothers who may not feel comfortable in their face being shown. Okay. And so for them, we'll say, okay, no, we'll just let you just do an audio, and still mm-hmm. let the people hear from you. They're fathers of the same way, but typically when the child is missing, they really don't care whether or not they are on video or on audio. They just want to know that is what we are doing going to help bring their son or daughter back home. Mm-hmm. That's always the end goal.
What about law enforcement? When did they started working more closely with you, from the beginning, or has there been was it building, or was there something that happened that helped law enforcement work more closely with you?
Yes, law enforcement began to embrace the courtesy alert when there was an app called Periscope. Okay, I don't know if you remember that, but it's been about 2 years ago. Periscope is no more, except for that it's merged with Twitter or something like that, and it's really not the same in the manner in which we were using it. But officers, law enforcement, they would get our broadcast, because if you've ever seen any of our broadcasts, we will take and we will tag the local law enforcement. Whatever we send out, we will tag them, and they will get a copy of it, and they will see exactly what's being said and so forth. And oftentimes, we started getting results, I want to say just a few short months after initiating courtesy alerts. We started getting results. We started hearing law enforcement say, thanks to social media, a person saw this car or a person saw this child, and they called law enforcement, the number that was given out on social media, and the child was found and safely recovered. And so they began, even on mainstream media, sharing the effects that social media was having in the cases. And it was real interesting, because I began sharing with people as I did the broadcast. I would share with them that, okay, law enforcement has had this case for a week. I want you to get this. Law enforcement will have had the case for about a week. And then we get it, and it's within 3 or 4 hours, the case is resolved. And this began to happen again and again and again. Maybe it was a week, maybe it was 3 weeks, and then we get the case, and within less than 24 hours, the child is found. So yes, and law enforcement began to tell us thank you, and they know now whenever we call, we will find out about the information. They will give us any additional information, or they will tell us not to mention certain information. And of course, like I stated, we work hand in hand with law enforcement on these matters.
When did this network spread to other countries as well?
Mm-hmm. It's very good, very good question. Shortly thereafter, like I stated before, we have child safety advocates all over the country. but we also have child safety advocates that we network with all around the world. And so when we do a broadcast here, some of our partners from Germany will take and will share the broadcast to their American friends and so forth. And likewise, we will receive from time to time, we will receive alerts from Ireland or alerts from Germany or alerts from Australia. And we will take and share them here. And people say, well, why would you do that? We do that because it's important, because when you understand that just like a person can put a child in a car and flee at the rate of a mile a minute, a person can abduct the person, put them on a plane and be across the country or be someplace around across the pond in just 4 hours, okay? And so, yes, we do incorporate our international partners as well. And so, yes, they are sharers of our broadcast as well. And as they share into the other countries and so forth, that's what has caused the courtesy alert to even take on an international emphasis.
So even for sometimes with people in other countries, do they come to you and then you help them issue courtesy alerts on your network as well, on the Amber News network?
Yes, I do. And I'll give you a great example. I had a family, it's been a couple of years ago now. I had a family who came to me and they were from another country. And they asked if they couldn't get the authorities over here to issue an Amber Alert because there was a situation where I think the father, who was a serviceman, was stationed here in the United States. And the mother, whom he married, was from another country. And so the family from that other country was asking me to get involved in issuing a courtesy alert for this child, whom the mother was from another country, but the dad was from over here. And so, yes, we did issue that alert. We had to wait, however, until they had some law enforcement on their side here in the United States, such as a lawyer or a private investigator or someone here, because if I'm going to issue an alert here in the United States, I must have a United States number to give to the people on the broadcast, because people are not going to call around the world to share something. There must be a number here on this particular, here on US soil for me to give to people. And so once we did that, we were able to do that, and the child was returned. The child was taken to a private investigator, and the child was then made a ward of the state. And then they had to go through, they had to come over here and go through our judicial system over here in order to get the child back.
Mm-hmm. But at least the child was found, and it was on account of the alert, the courtesy alert that you issued. That is correct.
That is correct.
It seems as if, since like earlier you described that when Amber Alerts are issued by law enforcement, or but then later, once your courtesy alerts are issued, then sometimes the people are found, and the missing people are found within hours. Is it that your messages, the shares are more saturate more of media than law enforcement is able to do?
I would say that is absolutely accurate, because one, we're able to pack more stuff into our alert when it goes out. When our alert hits somebody else's tablet or hits someone else's phone, our alert is in that phone. In that message will be a broadcast. In that message will be the picture of a child or several pictures of the missing person. In that broadcast will be a plea for help from a mother or a father. Those three things are not present when an Amber Alert goes out. Like I stated before, when an Amber Alert goes out, you're going to get a written message, no picture, but a written message that gives you the name, description, and location. Okay, and it will say, if it will tell you where you can go to take a look at the picture of the child or so forth. But with us, it's with the courtesy alert, all of that is packed in to the post when you open it.
Do you know why law enforcement does not provide a picture on an alert?
That's a really good question. Sometimes, if you, I would think that when you ask law enforcement, they're going to say, well, the family didn't give us a picture, or the family didn't have a current picture of the child, or we're still waiting on one. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, when law enforcement, they are not equipped to give out that information. They will give it to, if they have it, they will give it to media, okay? Or other partners such as, some of the other centers and so forth that do like work that we do, that will get that information out. But yes, a lot of times they will have it in what they call their bolo, okay? But that's not something that they quickly and normally put out. They will share it with media and ask media to put it out there.
What is bolo?
Be on the lookout.
Okay, okay. All right, thanks. You mentioned that you have a lot of community advocates that work with you. How can, are they increasing? And is it that community organizations learn about you and then sign up to work with you? How could you describe this?
Yes, I would encourage them to go to our Facebook page. Okay, they can go to our Facebook page and send me a message, and I will be happy to communicate with them and share with them how they can join our ever-growing army of volunteers. You know, this is a great opportunity for people who are retired, retired mothers, retired fathers. This gives them something to do other than playing puzzles and so forth in the living room. They can actually be a part of helping. And it's those type of people. I have one young lady, I call her young. She is celebrating her 50th year of doing this, okay? And she shared that with me some time ago. And she said, she volunteered when she was 15 to start doing this. And this is her 50th year. And so, yeah, it's a great opportunity, especially for retirees. It gives them an additional purpose, and it also helps them. It allows them to help others to bring their missing children home. And there is no greater.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. What is the name of your Facebook page? We'll repeat it again later too.
Okay, name of the Facebook page, it is Amber Alert founder, Pastor Charles Williams, and the Amber News Network. Okay, that is one. And then there are others, but typically if you go to that one, you'll see the others down there. If you see a picture of me and a picture of me and President Bush, you know you're at the right page.
Okay. How well do average police officers on the street understand the plight of abducted or coerced human trafficking victims? And is there any training for police to recognize human trafficking?
That's really, really good. I had stated before, and I still hold to what I stated, that I believe that there is ongoing training that is absolutely necessary for law enforcement in understanding and recognizing human trafficking victims. Because this question came up last week before Congress as to this plight and so forth. It's important because you can't just say, I got trained, I got a crash course in human trafficking before I joined the force, as I was joining the force, but that's been 10 years ago. We have to constantly update and implement new things, because just as the pimps and the Johns are coming up with new ways of abducting children and taking people into human trafficking, they're constantly devising new strategies. So it would only make sense that with the abductors and the Johns, with them doing, with them updating how it is, what they do, we must, and law enforcement must, I would say on a yearly basis, continue to be updated as to their practices, policies, and procedures concerning human trafficking. Because I give you a great example. There was and this is something new. We hadn't seen this. But there was a young lady in Newport News, Virginia, and this young girl, she was I think she was like 14 or 15, out of Newport News, Virginia. Her mother sent her to school on a regular school day morning. This just happened about 5 months ago. Sent her to school. And as she sent her to school, mother said everything looked normal. They had no argument, no falling outs or anything. She was just going to school. But when she got to school and she was in the classroom, this girl received a phone call, not from her phone, but from another phone that had been supplied to her. And on the other line was a guy telling her that he was outside of the school and that he wanted her to come on and go with him. This girl then gets up and walks out of her classroom. The teacher did not stop him, because nowadays when teachers try to stop some kids, the kids up there, they're subject to fight the teacher or cuss the teacher out or whatever. And so this girl, she walked out of the classroom, and the school video footage shows her leaving the school, in front of the school, going and getting into a car. And they showed the video footage to her mom. Her mom did not recognize the car. The long and short of it was that they later found that girl. She was missing for 3 days. They later found her around 2 o'clock in the morning in the streets of Newport News, Virginia, being trafficked. Okay, so this is why we must continue to update our policies and procedures to reflect how the pimps are updating their stuff.
This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us on WZRD via Zoom, AMBERAlert founder, Pastor Charles Williams, and his Amber News Network. Pastor Williams, also, let's see. You mentioned that you have your broadcasts. When you do your broadcasts, are they simulcasts on different platforms as well, so you get the message out even further?
Yes, that is correct. Usually when we are doing a broadcast concerning a missing child, yes, we will be on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, as well as, and then on the, after we finish, we will upload it to like Instagram and IGTV and others.
Mm-hmm. Is there a platform that you use that that helps you spread it to help you coordinate having all of these different platforms streaming your program?
Sure, that's great. What we do is I'm old fashioned, okay? I believe in, I just have, and I have the YouTube app, I have the Twitter app, I have the Instagram apps and all of this. But there is other equipment out there that will allow you from one camera to upload to all of those platforms. There are some platforms that we're looking at. We just haven't seen where they're advantageous just yet. We're looking at TikTok. We're looking at a couple of other things there as well. A place where kids would hang out and so forth that would help us to get the message out. But yes, the more platforms that become available, that just means we can get it further out there, and it increases, whether it shortens the time by which a child may remain missing and or abducted.
Mm-hmm. Right. What are the words that parents need to use when reporting a missing child? And do you recall how you came to learn that parents must use these words?
Yes. What I have found out down through the years, I was going to say over, but what I have found out is that when parents call me and they tell me the police wouldn't give my child an Amber Alert, and I will ask them, usually my first question is, what did you tell the officer when he or she arrived? And they'll say, I told them that my child was missing. And it just makes me feel some kind of way sometimes, because I have been beating this drum for a good while in trying to educate communities as to what you should actually tell an officer when he or she arrives. When a family member tells the police that your son or your daughter or your niece or your nephew is missing, they will not think about whether or not this is an Amber Alert. Okay, they will put this like having tunnel vision. They will put it on a one-track resolution, if you will. This person is missing, and they will treat it as a missing person, not as an abducted person. Now take that same scenario and you say, I believe my child may have been abducted. Immediately, every law enforcement officer that would encounter that kind of a situation would immediately begin to think, is this an Amber Alert situation here? Or is this a missing? She said, I believe my child is abducted and or missing. So then they will begin to investigate your case through the lens of, this may be a possible Amber Alert situation, as opposed to this may be a potential runaway situation. So I have seen people, and it grieves me, because I have seen people talk themselves, literally talk themselves out of an Amber Alert and then be mad because they didn't get one. And I'll share with them, I'm saying, okay, what did you tell them? You know, there are certain things that people should say. Like I said, if you use the word abducted or kidnapped, the officers will look at your case differently. I guarantee it. And it's critically important that if, and get this, if your child, your missing loved one, your child, your missing loved one, your missing adult, whomsoever, if your missing loved one is on any kind of life-sustaining medication or any kind of mood-altering medication, it is critically important that you convey that to the officer. How many alerts have you heard where, I know I've issued many, but how many alerts have you heard where the news media said, authorities are looking for this 10-year-old girl, she's out here and she doesn't have her medication. And authorities believe that as long as she, the longer she stays out here without her medication, there are some severe consequences that could happen. Medication is a huge game changer when it comes to this determining whether or not an Amber Alert can be issued, or a courtesy alert can be issued, or a missing and endangered alert can be issued. Critically important.
Missing and endangered, isn't that also, don't the law enforcement also use that designation in addition to you?
That is correct. Law enforcement does use that term, missing and endangered, okay? They will use that term, whereas we use the term, we'll say a courtesy alert, or there may be others that may have other alerts. I know about there's an alert called the Ashante Alert out of Virginia for those who are over the age of 18, and that is, that's another critical area, because once a child turns 18, law enforcement, they will not go out and look unless there is an extenuating circumstance, and medicine is an extenuating circumstance to cause law enforcement to actually, get up and issue a missing and endangered. But before they will issue a missing and endangered, they must have some type of credible proof that your loved one is on this medication, Xanax, or some of these other powerful medications. Having a prescription from a doctor or a letter from a doctor stating that, yes, he or she is on this medication is a game changer for law enforcement.
When you mentioned earlier that the age bracket that is included in Amber Alerts, you mentioned pregnant, someone that is pregnant, so the child within that person. This is the first time we heard about that. So could you describe to us if you know of any case in which an Amber Alert was issued for a person that was still inside the mother's womb?
Absolutely, absolutely. It is, believe it or not, it has happened more times than you would probably want to think. Mm-hmm. Whenever a pregnant woman is abducted, or if she's kidnapped, let's say a pregnant woman is kidnapped, an Amber Alert can and has been issued for the child that the mother is carrying, okay? Because she is with child. And also, there have been cases where authorities have found the mother dead, who was pregnant. And the charges that the district attorney chose to prosecute was not one charge, but it was two charges. It was the charge for the death of the mother and the charge for the unborn child, okay? And so they look at it, law enforcement looks at it as though when a mother is pregnant Yes, if a woman is pregnant with, obviously she's with child. If a woman is pregnant, she can, and she's missing or abducted, she absolutely, they don't issue the Amber Alert for the adult because she's way too old, but they will issue the alert for the embryonic baby that is inside of the mother. They absolutely will do that.
And there have been cases for that as well. Do you know if those cases have been solved at all?
Yes, those cases were successfully prosecuted. And the person was charged for both the murder of the mother and the murder of the unborn embryo. And so it's a lot of people don't really think of it, but let me share this among women particularly. Let me say this: one of the greatest security tools that you have at your disposal is your child. Here's what I mean by that. If a woman goes missing from a upset boyfriend or whatever, if a woman goes missing on her own and she's not pregnant and she doesn't have any children with her, authorities are going to treat it just like they do a lot of other cases. You know, if she turns up, we'll let you know, and that's about it. But if that same woman has a son or daughter with her and she and the kids go missing, that woman then becomes the benefit of those children who are missing, and authorities will issue the Amber Alert for the children, knowing that the children are with the mother, most likely. So yes.
Okay. Oh, there was something. There was. Let's see. You also mentioned that a current photo is necessary. That is 3 months old of a child. A current photo that is 3 months old of a child is the best photo for showing authorities to find the child. Is it that after 3 months, a child appearance might change? The child might grow older and look different?
That is a great question. When I stated that is based on the fact that in this digital age, most parents have cameras. They've got iPhone 13s now, and just a number of different electronic devices that you can quickly snap a shot of your child just for your record. We recommend not having a photo that is older than 3 months. Okay, not having a photo that is older than 3 months, because yes, a child's appearance can change. Okay, I know I've had 4 daughters, and trust me, they have 4 different hairdos. Okay, I have 4 grandsons, and trust me, that in 3 months they will have gone through a couple of different hairdos. They may have blue hair now, they may have pink hair or pink stripe or whatever. So it's important. It's important that you have a reasonably current photo of your child ready to provide to the authorities in the event that your child goes missing. Now, going missing doesn't mean that that your child is going to this is going to happen and lead to an Amber Alert. It may or it may not. But just for instance, you may be in a big box store, you know, or Sam's or Walmart or a big box store somewhere, and you become separated from your child, and you can take your phone up to the security or management at that store and share that picture, share that current picture with them. And, within minutes, hopefully, they will, return you and reunite you back with your child there in the store. On a larger scale, we have had cases where children were abducted, an Amber Alert was issued. And one of the most frustrating things with law enforcement is that, okay, we're ready to issue this Amber Alert, but we don't have a current picture of a child. In fact, we have no picture. So sometimes some Amber Alerts start out with no pictures, but then maybe an aunt or an auntie or somebody who has a current picture will share that and send it to law enforcement, and they'll update it and say, here's an update to this Amber Alert. Here's the picture. Here's the picture of the child. And so, but when minutes matter and seconds matter, it's a good thing to have that picture of your child on your phone. Okay, so just in case. Now, I stated before that when we were in the height of the pandemic, we were saying we need a picture with or without, with or without a mask, okay? And we're still saying a picture, show us a picture with the mask and without a mask, because we are still in this pandemic. And so we have found children with masks on, and we have found children without masks on. But if you just totally don't mention the mask, then that's something that doesn't give you the best edge at finding the child.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and also if someone has abducted the child, they might want to disguise the child by putting a mask on the child to hide the features too, correct?
That is absolutely true.
What about adults? Let's say that if there are, someone over 18, does that three-month-old photo, is that applicable to adults as well?
I would say yes, it is, because here's what happens with adults. Like I said, they can really change their appearance and so forth. But it's always good. It's like me, I have pictures of all my daughters. I have pictures of all my grandchildren. I have pictures of my granddaughters and my grandsons. Okay, and they are all current. But it's difficult. It's difficult to ask the community to look for a child, and here's the picture, and this picture is even 2 years old. Okay, in 2 years, a person can put on about 20 pounds. Okay, in 2 years, and so if we're saying that this person is slim and trim, and you're showing us a picture of a person who weighed 130, and when we find the person, they actually weigh closer to 160. That's kind of an issue there. And so one of the other things one thing I do not do, and a lot of people have chided me for it, is that they ask me, they say, well, why don't you use pictures of like some of these places, they can make up a picture as to what your child should look like. Okay.
Age progression features.
That's what. Yes. They say, well, why don't you use age progression? Well, age progression is a double-edged sword. With age progression, you could have people looking for somebody that's not the person that we're looking for. Okay. And you could cause a world of hurt for that particular person. So I don't really use age progression, because to me, that technology, though it is good, that technology really has not shown the progression that I would have wanted it to show at this time.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to a recent case that you've worked on, Sheena Gibbs from Rogers Park. she's 40 years old, and it took months before her case was even acknowledged by the police. Do you know if it was on account of her being 40 years old? What took so long? Do you have any idea why it took so long for the case to, start being on the police's radar, and then for the police to start actually issuing alerts?
I believe much like you that her case just really literally fell under the radar. There was several jurisdictions involved with her case. There's the Illinois jurisdiction, there's Rogers Park, Chicago, and then we spread out into areas in Iowa as concerning this particular case. So this is a case that stretches out over multi jurisdictions, and I have spoken with the family, and they are very, very appreciative for the radio station here sharing about her case. And because had it not been for you, it was not even on our radar. Okay. And so when we did the digging, when we began hearing from the family and those who have grown up with her, we began doing digging and speaking to several family members. We found out what they were doing, what the police were doing in Iowa, found out what the police were doing here, there in Chicago. And we are yet hoping for a good resolution. Sometimes I tell the families that sometimes no news is good news. It's not necessarily bad news, but no news is good news. The fact that she hasn't been found doesn't mean that she's deceased. We don't know that, and we're holding out hope that that is not the case. But we are yet actively looking, and where we are with that case right now is that per my last conversation with the family just last week, is that we are planning. They said once the snow breaks and the extreme cold breaks, we are planning to do a grid search in areas there in Chicago, areas in Iowa, near her dad's place and near other places that I'm not going to disclose. But one of the main things, and I'm glad I have this opportunity, one of the main things that we are going to need when we prepare, and they've asked me to be a voice in helping with this. One of the main things that we are going to need is we're going to need men. We are going to need men who will volunteer their time on a Saturday to come and help search for 40-year-old Sheena Gibbs. We do not have a date yet. We're just saying that as soon as the weather breaks and it dries a bit, that we're going to go into certain areas that she was known to frequent, and we just got to backtrace and find them. We just got to Authorities have not done this. Authorities have not indicated that they would do this. So this is going to be a community effort to put forth a search to help find 40-year-old Sheena Gibbs.
Have you led such community efforts before in other cases?
Yes, we have. We have several years experience in doing this. I would say, and like I was sharing with the family, that it's important that we have several meetings prior to then, because in doing a grid search and so forth, there are things that must be taught, must be shared with those participating in the search, such as if you see something, you cannot take a picture of it with your phone. If you see something that might be pertinent, you cannot touch it. Call the superiors, call the authorities or whatsoever, but do not touch it. let the authorities determine whether or not this is something that is relevant to the case. And so there are a number of guidelines that must be followed. I know here in Ohio, the most recent one I did, it's been a couple of years back now. There was a 16-year-old girl who was missing for months. She was missing for months, and we came together. We did a community gathering, and we came together. A church let us use their parking lot, and we had a community-wide prayer gathering for this little girl, and her abductors saw it, and they became nervous. And it wasn't much longer after that they let this girl loose, and she was found as a result of as a direct result of the community-led efforts by myself and by including her dad and family. Most of these parents, I'm gonna tell you, most of these parents are so stressed when this is going on. They can't hold it together enough to do this on their own. But when you have child safety advocates like myself and others who come along with them that say, hey, listen, let's do this. Don't worry about this. I've got everything that we need to do this. We're going to have the media there to cover it and so forth. And we did, and it paid off. The law enforcement was there. They came and they spoke and they had words, and it was a beautiful thing. But at the end of that day, she was still missing. But it wasn't too many days after that she was found safe.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's really, really inspiring. Hopefully more families will learn about what you do, and then you can help more families. Yes. Are the parameters different for different law enforcement jurisdictions regarding these community searches?
I don't know that law enforcement has a guideline for community searches. They may have a guideline for their officers participating in community searches, but as far as a guideline, I am not aware of. But here's what I can say to that, as well as far as officer involvement. And this goes for this case in Chicago or a case in Louisiana that we're also working currently. You can have off-duty law enforcement participating with your searches. They don't listen. If they won't do it on duty, put the information out there, and I promise you, you will get some off-duty sheriff's department, sheriff deputies. You will get some off-duty police officers who just really have a heart to want to search and bring cases to an end.
When you mentioned earlier, they should, if they find anything, they should not take a picture of it nor touch it. So we understand that so that the evidence is not disturbed in any way. When they reach out to someone who is in charge to actually make a record of the evidence, is that a community member, or is that you contact law enforcement at that point to point out what the community has found?
Sure. What we have, what usually happens is that a good number of people will show up for a community-wide search. And they will then break up into smaller groups. Having been instructed, they will then break up into smaller groups. And as they go out into smaller groups, they will designate somebody as the head of that particular group as they go out. And let's just say, as they're out and they come across a bag and it looks like that bag has something in it. They then will alert their captain that, hey, we found a bag over here. You want to come over and look at it, whatever. So the captain then will come over, and then if he or she determines that there's something a little bit more about this, then they will in turn contact local law enforcement to their location. And then the local law enforcement, they will be the ones to do the touching and determining if this is just trash or if this is just something the dog drug out to the field. This is critically important because over the last 2 years, we have had a number of children who were abducted and killed and placed in trash bags and discarded on the side of the road. And I'll give you one of the stories out of Arkansas. Out of Arkansas, there was a little girl who was actually missing out of Houston, Texas. And the babysitter did something to this girl that killed her and took her life. And he stuffed her little body in a bag, in a trash bag. And he drove up the coast, drove up from Houston into the area near Little Rock, Arkansas. And finally, he got courage enough to take that bag and throw that bag on the side of the freeway, on the side of Interstate 40. And it was days. Everybody had alerts going. Courtesy alert, Amber Alert, looking for a little Malia Davis. That was her name, little Malia Davis. And it turns out that some workers who were mowing the grass along the freeway with one of these big wide tractors, they were mowing the grass and they saw a trash bag. Well, the worker went over to move the trash bag out of the way and realized that this bag had some weight to it. And then he remembered that there was an alert, but he didn't think that this is here. And so he called the local authorities, and the authorities came out, and the authorities confirmed that inside of that bag was the remains of little Malia Davis. So this is why we say, we don't take nothing for granted in, in these searches. We may find something, we may find nothing, but we are a day closer to finding the person that we're looking for.
Okay, let's work on a little bit of the information that families should and should not reveal about missing child on social media posts and on flyers. Could you go over that?
Yes, we will. Information that I believe that is necessary on a flyer is the child's name, child's age, and a contact number for the local police who are handling that particular case. That's really all the information that needs to be on a flyer. Here is why, because even now, even in many cases, we are hearing and we're being told that there are scammers who are calling, if a person puts their personal contact information on a flyer, scammers will call a family member and try to extort money from them for information as to where their loved one may be. And they most likely don't have any information concerning the relevancy of that case. And so we have heard from many family members, even as late as last week. I had a family member tell me that they said, "You're absolutely right. We were looking for a young man out of Pennsylvania." And I told the family member put their personal phone number, their cell phone number, and they had the police number was on there too. But they had their personal numbers on there. Well, the scammer's not going to call the police department. The scammer's going to call the personal numbers. And that's what he did. He called the personal numbers, tried to get the family to go to a store and buy some kind of cards or something that they could put money on and scam the families that way. So we don't want to see a family victimized twice. Right. They've been victimized once by their loved one missing. And to become victimized twice is something that we don't want to see happen. So that's why we encourage people to only list the pertinent information, name, age, and police jurisdiction. If you have any information, that's that. That protects both the family and the integrity of the investigation.
How can a local church help a family find a missing or trafficked family member? Sure.
I believe, and this is an initiative that we are working on even now. I believe that churches, it's going to be necessary for churches to become involved one way or the other. And I would hope that churches would choose to become involved on the front side of an Amber Alert or of a courtesy alert, as opposed to on the back side, which means on the back side, a family member coming to the church to ask if we can use their church for a funeral. But no, here's what we mean by this, is that churches, they can get involved. By a lot of our churches today have multimedia presentation outlets. Before the service, it's much like going to a movie. Before the movie plays, they're showing you all of these different upcoming features and upcoming attractions and everything. Well, if you use that same feature in a church, okay, if you use that same feature in a church, whereas before service starts, they can highlight a missing person from their area, okay, on their screens and say, whether it's a child or whether it's adult, they can simply upload that information and say, if you have any information, please call the local authorities about this missing person. It may be 2, it may be 3 of them. They can do it before service or they can do it after service. And again, I'm notorious for coming up with stuff that costs people anything except zero again. Mm-hmm. It would cost zero to share that information with their parishioners before service and after service. Usually I'm a retired senior pastor, so I know what's happening before service. Before service, you have people sitting down, they're either talking or they're sitting down or they're either praying, preparing, getting ready for the service. And so with this scrolling across the screen, it will allow people who are already at church to pray for that person. If they don't do anything else, they can pray for that person. Or if they have seen that person, they can contact the local authorities. People oftentimes think that churches are exempt from Amber Alerts and courtesy alerts, but they're not. They're not. I personally have had children returned to me, and then I, in turn, was able to deliver the child back to a mother who was missing her child. And we did it there at the church. And then there's a sad side to this. The sad side is, okay, before I leave that point, let's say your church doesn't have a multimedia presentation. How can you help? How can you participate? You can help and participate by, when you go to print your weekly bulletins, on the back of your weekly bulletin, highlight a missing person, okay? Highlight a missing person on the back of the missing bulletin. A person can take it home with them. They can look at it again on Tuesday or so forth. So yeah, there are several ways that they can get involved. We had an Amber Alert in Tyler, Texas, about 2.5 years ago now. It was for a child who was at church. The child was at church with her mother. And the mother told the child to stay right here in the vestibule or in the lobby area of the church while the mother was going to go in and use the restroom for whatever reason. And well, she had to go. That was the reason. And so she goes in to the restroom. She comes back out of the restroom, still there at the church now. She comes out of the restroom and her little 10 or 12-year-old daughter is missing. And she remained missing for about 4 days, missing from the church, missing for 4 days. They later found that little girl at the bottom of a well of an abandoned house just outside of Tyler, Texas. So yes, we are reaching out to the churches for their help because they must join us in this campaign in keeping our children safe.
So was that child deceased at the bottom of the well?
Yes, the child was at the bottom of the well, just out of Tyler, Texas.
Yes. When it seems as if when you also using churches, it kind of correlates with the use of the break room, the employees' break room, because then you have that you have the information being spread to people without the information being taken down. It's like embedded within a group of people.
That's right. That's absolutely correct.
Please describe the dilemmas that parents and schools face when a child can walk out of school. I think I saw somewhere where you stated that there's nothing that schools could do. A child has the right to walk out of school.
I would say this, it's not that the child has the right to walk out of school because they literally don't. But the situation is that the child, the school, you would think the school normally has officers or designated school coaches or something to help with conflict in the classroom. But nowadays, children are fighting teachers in the classroom. I mean, teachers are really afraid of some of these children because a child will stand up in a classroom and will cuss a teacher out. If I ever did that when I was in school, I would have gotten a whooping from everybody who knew me. Okay, so, but nowadays these children, they can stand up, they can cuss the teacher out, they can do whatever they want to do in the classroom. So when this young girl got up and walked out of the classroom, and the school had it on camera, that's all the school could do. The school could say, look, we can't stop you, okay? We're not gonna fight your daughter. We can't stop you, but they can put her on camera, and they did. And so that's why when the authorities came to the school and they viewed the video footage of the school, they said, we can't issue an Amber Alert. Said we can't issue an Amber Alert because your daughter got up, she got up in the classroom, walked out of the classroom, down the hall, out the door, and into an awaiting car. They said this was not an abduction. She left willingly. And so that's when the family contacted me and asked me if I could issue a courtesy alert on her behalf, and we did. But yes, it happens. It happens.
In what states do human traffickers use the 16-year-old age of consent against their victims' families?
There is one state that I am aware of. There may be more, depending on how they may have changed the laws or whatsoever. But in one state in particular, Alabama, there is a law on the books right now, because I dealt with a parent or a grandparent who was trying to get a child back. This law in Alabama allows a 16-year-old girl who is in a relationship with an older male. The law says that the 16-year-old girl has the right to stay there if she so chooses. A parent cannot make a 16-year-old girl come home, even though she's below the age of 18, but she's 16. And in Alabama, they are allowed to stay with grown men who are no doubt are taking advantage of the 16-year-old girl.
Okay. How prevalent is it for human traffickers to get 6 to 36 months for selling a child, while selling drugs results instead in sentences of life without parole?
And that therein, I think, is the problem. It is very prevalent. Mm-hmm. We may be winning. Okay, I'll say this like this. Here in Ohio, just last week, our governor awarded $1.3 million to several different agencies. I wasn't one of them. He awarded $1.3 million to several different agencies for the implementation of fighting human trafficking. That being said, all across this country, and if something needs to be changed, it's this. All across this country, governments are throwing big money at the human trafficking issue, trying to stop the children from being trafficked, trying to, educate Johns and sending the guys who are caught, sending them into what they call John schools or whatever, when they are found. But the real issue is that if you're only gonna slap them on the wrist for taking a 14-year-old girl's virginity, for taking for molesting some boy, 12, 13, 14 years of age, and you're only going to slap them on the wrist, what good is $1.3 million to fight human trafficking when you catch the victims, you're only slapping them on the wrist? I propose this. Let's set a mandatory minimum. Let's set a mandatory minimum of a minimal sentence to people who are caught human trafficking. How about a mandatory 20-year sentence? I think that would be a pretty good deterrent, okay? A mandatory 20-year sentence for anyone convicted of having anything at all to do with human trafficking. Whether you are the John that was doing a 16 or 17-year-old girl, or whether you are a woman who was grooming the girls for the John. So yes, it's really something that legislators must look at. They must look at. Yes, we appreciate the money on the front end, but if we're just throwing it out the back door on the back end, this is just going to be a cat. This is going to be like a cat chasing its tail. It's just going to continue to happen.
Mm-hmm. Because they're not addressing the root of the problem. They're just addressing the symptoms.
That is absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm. You also mentioned that a parent needs to keep the phone on if a child goes missing. Why is that?
I encourage a parent, especially, of course, if a child is missing, there's no parent that's going to turn their that's going to turn their device off. But here's what I am talking about when I say that. It's important to keep in every phone, I'll say this, in every phone, whether it's iPhone, Android, or whatever, in every phone, there is what's called government alerts. And there where it says government alerts, you'll see Amber alerts. You'll see government alerts. Government alerts will always stay on. Amber alerts, you have the option of turning it off or keeping it on. It's important that if you want to help out people in your community and stay in the loop as to when a child is missing in your neck of the woods, it's important that you keep that phone, that you keep that button on, that you keep that alert on your phone. Now, you can turn your phone off, okay? You can turn your phone off, but when you turn it back on, that alert will be the first thing that will pop up on your phone when you do that. And that's by design.
You also mentioned that cheap phone carriers are problematic when parents need the phone records of their child who has gone missing. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yes. Cheap telephone carriers, and a lot of people don't think about this. They don't think about any phone carriers being cheap. But what I mean by this is that you have phone carriers that are not whose headquarters are not in this country. Okay, they may be in Canada. They could be in Canada. Could be in Mexico. Could be anywhere. And so, but they'll sell phones in the United States very, very cheaply. And so people will gravitate towards the cheap phones. Well, the problem with that, okay, the problem with the cheap phones are that when authorities are trying to get your phone records, okay, not that your phone is pinging, they can quickly find out where your phone is pinging from, okay? But to get the actual phone records from American companies, it may take them 4 or 5 days to get your phone records. The records will entail the last, the phone calls that you made or the phone calls that came to your phone from someone else. And that helps the authorities to kind of track an area or identify a potential suspect that they may have had their eye on or that they may need to put their eye on. But when you're dealing with a cheap phone carrier that is out of the country, one, authorities oftentimes, and I have experienced this with some cases, authorities, one, they have to get a subpoena. Authorities, a detective will have to go and request a subpoena to present to a cheap phone company, perhaps over in Canada or in some other area outside of the country. He will have to present them with a subpoena for those records, and it may take up to 15 days or longer to get the phone records from some of these cheap carriers. But carriers such as carriers like Apple and some of the American companies, it does not take that long for them to get the phone records. Again, I wanted to show you that we're talking about two different things here. We're talking about phone records versus pinging on the phone. The pings on the phone are only good as long as the battery life is good on the phone. And wow, this is so good because the pinging on the phone, let's say a person, and we've seen this, we have really seen this. A person abducts a child, abducts a 14, 15-year-old girl. And the abductor now says, here, I want you to use this phone. And she said, and then the girl says, what do I do with this phone? He takes and tosses that phone out the window while they're driving. Well, the pinging on that phone will lead the authorities to where that phone was tossed out at. Does that mean that's where the girl is? No, that just means that that's where they were and gone on through. So that's how pinging works. But the actual records of who called who and what time they called and getting text records of that nature, if it's from an American-made company, it's a lot easier than it is from some of the cheaper in and secondhand phones, refurbished phones in that manner.
Wow. Okay. You also shared before that states which are major trucking hubs, such as Nevada, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, Ohio, Delaware, California, Missouri, Michigan, and Texas, are also major human trafficking hubs as well. So is it that the trucks are being used to transport groups of victims, or is it something else? Do you know?
Well, here's what I know. It would not be the first time. It would not be the first time that that some of these truckers have been found to have a cargo. I'm not talking one or two people. I'm talking about truckers crossing the border. I'm from Texas, so we've seen this a lot. They're in Texas, coming over from Mexico. DPS would often stop a trucker that looked suspicious or whatever, and he would have them to open up the back of his truck, and there were men, women, and children who paid to be smuggled across the border into the great state of Texas. And once they get into Texas, they'll pay other truckers to carry them into other places. So yes, it does happen. And it does seem to, there does seem to be a parallel at that many of the top 5 areas of human trafficking are also 5 of the top 5 trucking areas here in the country. So yes, there is a parallel with that.
And finally, you also mentioned that after a child is found, aftercare is very important. Could you explain what aftercare is?
Yes, aftercare is once a child has been recovered and found safely and now is back home where he or she belongs. That is just the beginning of what has to take place following an Amber Alert or courtesy alert. Oftentimes people are so excited that the child was found and everything that they don't think about, okay, what's next? What's next is therapy. What's next is there are some mothers, and I know this personally, there are some mothers who would not even ask their daughters what happened while they were away. Either because they don't want to know or they don't want to put the daughter through the trauma of having to share those nightmares again. So a licensed and professional therapist are the ones who now come into the picture. A licensed or professional therapist, a minister, a counselor, a church minister or a church leader or church counselor is often sought to help the family to reacclimate to each other, because that is absolutely so important. Case in point, we had a case here in Ohio just last month where a little girl was abducted by her babysitter's boyfriend. He abducted her, took her to a vacant house where she was repeatedly violated. And thankfully, before it got too cold and the cold weather was setting in, authorities were able to find her. They found her from a tip given by a child at school. And they found her. She lied there in a vacant house in Northeast Ohio, but she was alive. She was alive. She had been violated repeatedly. And after going to the hospital, which AMBERAlert protocol requires every child, male or female, to submit to a post examination as to what they may have expected. That's documentation for court. And it was later disclosed that, like I stated before, she had been violated repeatedly by this person. They did find him, and he is now sitting in lockup under a multi-million-dollar bond, and don't look like he's going anywhere anytime soon. And that was that little girl's plight. Now, she is going to have to undergo a lot of therapy. She was only 12. She's going to have to undergo a lot of therapy. And her family has to be very, very careful and deal with her very gingerly, okay, as to not to set off any triggers that she may have experienced. So that's what I mean by there is a large amount of aftercare. I know there was a lady in Baltimore whose daughter went missing, and I issued a courtesy alert for her. And her daughter was found 2 days later after we issued the courtesy alert. And she tells me all the time, some of these people, we become the best of friends. And she tells me often, because I call and check on her at least once a month or once every other month. I'll call and say, hey, how are y'all doing? How's my girl doing? So forth. And she'll tell me often, she'll say, Pastor, we're taking it one day at a time. One day at a time. And for most of these families who have experienced Amber Alerts, and the kids who have experienced the trauma that Amber Alerts bring with it, the drama with guys with big guns and law enforcement and all these police cars, that can be traumatic for a kid seeing all of this. And that has to be dealt with, but it has to be dealt with properly and professionally. That's a great question.
This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us on WZRD via Zoom, AMBERAlert founder, Pastor Charles Williams of the Amber News Network. Pastor Williams, we have 3 more questions concerning a community assessment. I'll explain. WZRD Chicago, being a nonprofit radio station, must be responsible to the community we serve. WZRD is mandated to file quarterly issues with the FCC on non-entertainment, community-focused programming. And we like to assess the community for these quarterly issue topics with 3 questions. First, what is most important to you?
What is most important to me is that we get this information into the hands of responsible people who can help make a difference and bring a missing child home.
Second, what long-term problem must we address?
The long-term problem of people just looking the other way and people not paying attention to the alerts. I think this was a great dialogue to be able to share with people to understand and underscore the extreme importance of these alerts.
We agree too. Thank you so much for that. Finally, the third question is, what problem must we resolve now?
I believe the problem that we must resolve now is that I believe that, one, we must resolve within ourselves. I'm gonna say it this way. We must resolve within ourselves that we are going to get involved. And then number two, we must resolve within ourselves that no more kids are going to go missing on our watch and we not do anything about it.
Well, Pastor Williams, could you also provide our listeners again with your contact information in case they have more questions or they might need your help but to find their missing person?
Yes, you can reach me at my email address is rsprings32@gmail.com. That's rsprings, that's the letter R, springs, SPRINGS 32@gmail.com. Or you can reach us on Facebook Messenger. You can just go there and send us a message, and we're very good about returning responses on our messenger and on our email as well. More information about us can be found on our website. Our website is www.AMBERalertfounder.com. That's www.AMBERalertfounder.com. And then last but not least, if you have a missing person, you have a missing child, adult or child, please go to the website and enter your missing loved one's information at www.findmybeloved.org. They are a website that fills the gap when a family is waiting as to whether or not they would be able to receive an Amber Alert or not. That website automatically sends out the information that you give it to thousands of other people about your missing loved one while they're still waiting as to whether or not they will receive an Amber Alert or a courtesy alert. That's critically important. Thank you.
And for Messenger and Facebook, what is the name of your page?
It's Messenger and Facebook. It is Amber Alert founder, Pastor Charles Williams, and the Amber News Network. You'll see it, Amber Alert founder, Pastor Charles Williams, and the Amber News Network. And you can reach us through there.
Okay. Well, Pastor Williams, thank you so much for joining us on WZRD Chicago today and giving us so much information that will hopefully bring some resolution and maybe bring back some missing persons to their families if they need to work with you as an additional resource. And we might have you again in the future when maybe there's more to share and maybe even just to revisit and share with us some of your other success stories, and hopefully there will be many of those.
Amen. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you too. Thank you.